Man, oh man, oh man. Do we got a crazy joint today? All right, so let's get into this. Welcome to CNN. I'm KurtKennedy.com. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. All right, so over the last few months, maybe the last 4 or 5 months, I've watched a lot of those, actually, this was longer than that. Let me back up. So in spring of 2022, I felt like the Lord was leading our church to talk about spiritual warfare. Now, we were in a series in the book of Romans, and so the Reformed Berean was good, baby. So we were in a series in Romans, and then as we were finishing that series, I just felt like we need to go into spiritual warfare. But I didn't want to just go open up Ephesians 6 and do 5 messages from it, you know, because a lot of, I think, spiritual warfare in the church, or at least in my sort of theological framework, I'm more reformed in my understanding of things. I'm not a Calvinist, but I'm reformed in particular ways. But a lot of those who are in reformed theology either act like the devil is defeated and that he has no authority here, and so or they treat him like he just is sort of non-existent, and that's just not true. Or you have the Pentecostal side who everything is the devil, and there's this balance. Everyone's reacting to this balance. I'm in between, right? I try to stay with the Bible says. The devil's a roaring lion who's seeking someone to devour, right? We do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but against the principalities and dark, right? The devil appears as the angel of light, like he's still a functional, formidable opponent. So we started to do this series, which I entitled "The Supernatural Storyline of the Bible," and it started in September of 2022, and we ended it in July of 2023. And I felt like that series transformed our church. Not in some we're doing crazy stuff in our services, but just like understanding the reality of the super. Like, let me give you an example. This is probably going. I'm going to talk about this in a whole other time, but let me give you an example of what I mean. Like, so we live right now as Christians today. We live in the post Enlightenment era. All right. So the Enlightenment was a period of maybe 200 something years. I can't remember exactly, but it was sort of where the scientific method comes in, reason, analysis. So from the Enlightenment, we get thoughts like, I think, therefore I am. Like, right, reason supersedes faith. And so now people don't have faith or a supernatural, like biblical perspective. They have more scientific perspective. And so Christianity, to combat this sort of age of Enlightenment era, developed hermeneutics and things that were based on proving God's existence, right? Based on reason and proof, the same scientific method that the world was using to say, I don't believe. Christians were trying to, rightly so, trying to figure out, how do I prove that God exists through reason? The problem is, though, 1 Corinthians 2:11, through 14 says that the man without the Spirit of God does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they're spiritually discerned. So you may be able to talk some people into believing God exists from a reason perspective, but reason is the age of enlightenment. We're people of faith, right? So that happened, and then the church kind of transformed and moved away from more of the supernatural component, a biblical way, not like the everything is the devil, the way some people go the other way, but a biblical perspective on the supernatural storyline. So when I did this series, I realized that the main storyline of the Bible is not man's salvation. That is a byproduct. The main storyline of the Bible is God against the gods. I mean, salvation. If you think about Genesis 3, this is a whole deep thing. I'm not going to get into this now because we're going someplace here. But if you figure, why is salvation necessary? Because a supernatural being that God created, Satan, tempted Adam and Eve. They fell victim to the temptation, right? They bit the fruit, and then God told Satan in Genesis 3:15 This woman will give birth to a seed, and he will crush your head, you will bruise his heel. In John 12, the night before Jesus was dying, right? The night before Jesus was dying, Jesus said this, John 12, look at verse 31 and on. He says, now is the judgment of this world, and the ruler of this world will be cast out. And when I am lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. John puts a parenthetical statement that says he was describing how he would die when he said, when I am lifted up. So Jesus' perspective is, I am here to destroy the ruler of this world, Satan. And when I'm lifted up on the cross, I will draw all people to myself. All right. So the main storyline of the Bible is God against the gods. If you look at the Old Testament, God always told Israel, do not worship their gods. Don't marry them. Don't let them marry your children. Why? Because they will turn away and worship their gods. What is the first commandment of the 10 commandments? You shall have no other gods before me, right? Why did God care about that first? Because that's what was happening. So we realize, wow, we've been looking at the Bible too man-centered. It's about what God did for me, and that's true. But what God is doing is reclaiming his glory back from the other gods who have taken humanity captive. 2 Timothy 2:26, the devil has taken people captive to do his will, right? That's the main storyline of the Bible, God against the gods, and our salvation is a byproduct of that, right? So that's a whole different thing. So having said that, I've been fascinated by like testimonies of people that I've gone to hell and seen that. So, and I don't, they're anecdotal, but there's too much consistency to how the Bible describes things and what people are describing. They'd be like, wow, this is crazy. So a member of my church, she's in one of my groups. I lead a small group called Supernatural Storyline of Bible Part 2. We were going on some other stuff. So I was telling her about these testimonies. So she says, hey, have you heard of this testimony of this ex-warlock or whatever? And I said, well, I've seen a lot of them. I thought she was talking about, she said, no, this one's like 3 hours long. I was like, man, 3 hours long, golly. So anyway, she sent me the link, and I said, let me watch this testimony. And I'm about an hour into it, and there's some stuff that's blowing me away. Now, this may not be where you're from, and you don't have to, fine, you clicked on the link. You clicked on the thing. If you don't like it, you can click off. If you bang with it, like and subscribe to the channel. But I want to take we're going to watch a few minutes of his testimony. And at one point, so here's where he is in the story. We're going to jump right into the scene. He has been trained by Satan and witches in Africa to be like this high priest. Like he has supernatural powers, all this stuff, right? So it's a long story. I'll put the link in the description. You can watch it. But he's at this point in the story, he's around 12 years old. His mom took him to a Muslim imam who said, look, this boy, you have to take him to the church. The only thing that can break the powers of darkness over this boy is the church. You got to take him to the church. There's a Muslim telling his mom that. She takes him to a church, but the bishop of the church is corrupt. He's with Satan. So he thinks, and his mother thinks, they're going to train him in seminary to be a priest, but he describes what actually happens. And this is where we're going to pick up in the story. And he gives this distinction between witchcraft and the occult. He talks about he was around witchcraft and dealing with that, but then when he gets taken to Europe, he gets introduced to the occult, and he explains what that is, the difference between the two, and how it played out over. And you start to hear, in many ways, the strategy of Satan, and you start to realize, wow, no wonder it seems like he's winning over the church because of this strategy. All right, so let's go here. Let's watch this. This is. He says some wild stuff, so buckle up. All right, this isn't scary unless you don't have confidence in the gospel. But he says some wild stuff. Let's listen.
All my life, I always enjoyed like to be in charge, to control others. Like there was a deficit in me, and I'm telling them all the powers. They're writing these. They're right, like researchers. They're sitting around me.
And this is going on for what, years?
For years.
So in all that time, you didn't learn anything about Jesus, about scriptures, and you were in a Christian environment, in quotes.
Yes. Really but not learning about God.
This is what he's saying real quick, that he goes to be around all these priests because they know he has these evil supernatural powers, And all they want to know about is the spirit world. They're not teaching him about Jesus, about none of the stuff that he thought he was going to learn. That's basically what he's saying.
I'm learning up. They actually, I'm not learning.
You're teaching. You're teaching them.
They're teaching from me. So I remember the end of the year, this bishop and another priest, they told me, we have a scholarship for you. We are going to send you to Europe for training. And so in me, I thought, okay, I needed, but they told me they needed the consent of my father. So my father, that's the first time I'm seeing my father. He came to the school to sign the papers, sign my documentation, because I was now going to be moved from Uganda to go to Europe.
All right, real quick. The reason why it's the first time he's seeing his father, because when he was born, when he was 1 day old, his mom had to take him to this witch in the woods, and they had a wedding ceremony. A 60-year-old witch was marrying a 1 day old baby boy, and she transferred her powers into him as a baby. His mom was instructed to not breastfeed him, but she was going to do it anyway. So when she went back home, she put her son down, went in the next room, and a python came in and wrapped around him for 3 months. For 3 months, she could not get to him because Satan wanted to disconnect the connection between him and his mom, which often comes through nursing, right? The mother and the kids, they bond through that nursing. So there was a python, and the whole neighborhood would come and look and knew there was a python in this house. So the husband, his dad, took his 6 sisters and left because it was all this crazy stuff happening. That's why he's never seen his dad until he had to sign this paperwork. All right.
And so with Bavin, so you're 16 now.
No. I'm 13.
You're still 13. Oh, you said 4 years later.
No,
Okay.
2 years.
2 years later. So okay.
So I'm 13, and now they tell me you have a scholarship to go and study in Europe. Now, for the sake of the sensitivity of this, I may not mention
Where?
where. But
Can you tell us the country?
I was in Italy.
In Italy. Okay.
In Italy. So I'm sent to Italy for
At 13.
at 13.
Okay.
And I'm going without my mother. I'm going alone with a group of priests. I remember the 2 priests had come from Italy. They were sent from Italy to come and investigate, interview me, and make a recommendation. So they asked me about the spirit world, about these, about powers, about systems. And they're like, wow, how did you know all this? You've never gone to school. You've never gone to a theology or to any university, but you know all the things about the spirit realm, about history, about what. How? So they say, oh, we need to go with you. So they carried me. Now I leave.
So the priest that came from Italy to investigate first, and then they took you with them.
I go with them. They come, they pick me up. We go through Rwanda. They picked another girl there. I don't know why, who had also strange powers. So we fly from Rwanda now we go through France. We stay there for some time. And that's when I discovered that now I have been being moved from the African witchcraft, the crude witchcraft. Now I'm being initiated into the occult.
All right, so this is where it's enlightening, all right? So he has these supernatural abilities. These priests come from Europe, and they're blown away. You know what's interesting? He's around 12. The same thing happened in Luke 3, where Jesus was 12. He's with the Pharisees, and he's blowing their minds away by his knowledge of the Bible and things. And they're like, this kid's 12. Where in the world did this kid get all this knowledge from, right? He's similar to that, where he's 12, but he understands how the supernatural world works because he's been inundated with demons and stuff since he was a 1 day old. It's a crazy testimony. And you can tell when you hear him talk, it's just authentic. But right now is when, for the first time in his life, he learns the difference between what African witchcraft is and what the occult is. When he comes to Europe, he sees the occult versus African witchcraft, and that's what he's about to explain right now. And this is kind of crazy. All right, here we go.
Okay, because you said that in the beginning that there's a difference between witchcraft and the occult. Can you just give us a basic definition of what's the difference?
The occult is a system. Actually, it's Satanism, the alliance of those that subscribe to Satan. Most witchcraft is about people's traditions and cultures, the things they do and what they learn. But now this one is literally the worship of
Satan
as a figure. There, in witchcraft it's about the spirits and the powers. But now then it's like a system, a religion. So when I went there, I'm put in a religious house where what happened there is the worst experience I went through. Because to break my will a second time, I have to be exposed to death and sexual abuse. So I am trained in the occult, but for the 5 years from 13 to 17, 18, almost every day I am molested and sexual abused.
Okay, this part.
All right, so this part right here is going to be a little heavy. Now, I know most of you who watch this channel and watch this stuff are adults. You're not watching with your kids. But just a quick thing. So he's saying that African witchcraft was more localized, even though it was still worship of Satan, right? It was more localized. It wasn't an organized religion, even though there was organization to it. Like before he gets to the point where we're at, earlier he talks about different territories and like people having territories and witches within that territory, and he was given territories to rule at like 7 years old. But he's saying, but the occult is more religious. It's more of the worship of Satan. It's about Satanism and ushering in Satan, where witchcraft is about spirits and powers and things like that, right? Listen to what he's about. Now, he's about to describe some tough stuff. So he's taken to Europe. He's around priests. I don't know if he meant the Catholic Church or something else, right? But he's in Italy. The Vatican is in it. I don't know what it is, right? But he's talking about what's happening to him, how he's going to be abused. But he explains what abuse is, what SA, right? What SA is. He explains what that is and why it happens. And there's a profound thought that he says here, all right? So buckle up. Here we go.
Part you didn't share in the 2017 testimony I heard. What?
So by men, by priests. So like they have to do that on me. I've written this in my book. That's the most, because they want to pluck out every aspect of me and then use
Wait,
me.
you're saying every day?
Almost every day. For
5 years.
So you during the day, you are like what they call the altar boys. You are like you put on the
And this is in a religious Christian, in quotes,
environment. So during the day, you are like a trainee being trained to be a priest. So you put on the gown, you attend mass, you do all this. Now, when you go back to the house, what you call the brother's house, you are molested as a boy by these men. They abuse you, they do all kind of things to break you completely.
So my question is, with all the powers you had, could you not use it against them?
Not.
You could not? How come?
Because Satan cannot destroy Satan.
But then you could use the powers to destroy other witches
who are lower than these ones.
Oh, were these in a higher ranking?
These are in a higher ranking, because now it's not about the witchcraft and what it's about now, the system, the sorcery system, which rules the world. I may say, which controls all the powers of the world. It's more not just a local witch somewhere. It's now a satanic system that controls the world.
Wow. Okay. So that went on for all these years. And by the time you're what, 17?
17, 18, towards 18.
Towards 18, 19. What happened at that point when you finished?
Actually, my finishing is during those abuses and many years, I also...
This is really, this part is sad. And this is also really sad. All right.
So got a mental breakdown. And they took me to a psychiatric hospital for 6 months and then pumped drugs.
This was in Italy.
Yeah. And psychotic drugs every day, in that I may be completely mad, that I never recover. It's like a way of like, now they're going to use your body, but you're not in your senses. So the 6 months I'm in this hospital, like a psychiatric hospital, they are trying to access information without my will. Like they sedate you and begin to investigate, ask you questions. So they're using you to access information, but you're not in your, but the pain you go through, because like when they put you in these drugs, like the antipsychotic drugs, they sedate you, and then also they are molesting you in that state, sexually molesting and abusing you in the hospital. And so all that we go on, they are crushing your soul in order to use your soul to get information that they cannot access. So that's what happened for me all those years, the mental breakdown. So then after the 6 months in that hospital, in the mental hospital, they realized they had not broken my will completely.
So now I'm a bit confused. Why are they trying to? Because you're already giving them information, right? So what were they of the opinion you were holding some things back they wanted, or what? I'm trying.
What I've still not say that sometime I written this in my book. Sometime they discovered that there's a part of me they could not access. It's as if God was involved and sealed a part of my life that they knew there's something I know, but they could not access it. So to do that, they had to molest me, abuse me, sedate me, drugs, put me on drugs and different things in order to break me, because there's a part they could not, they could say like, we have had different people who have been used, but this one is a bit blocked somewhere. What I'm trying to say that God, in his power, in his ability, preserved me even when I didn't know him.
That's a crazy thought right there, all right? What he just said is God preserved him even before he knew God, all right? Crazy thought. So what's he doesn't say this in this portion, but I think what's interesting is, and we're going to watch a little bit more because there's a part that he says that I think is just wild, right? There's a part that he's getting to. But the thing that I thought was fascinating is that like this is all Satan, right? And he's supposed to be this person within the kingdom of darkness with authority and power. But then when he gets moved from one place to the next, the way that the enemy promotes you is to SA you, right? Is to try to break your spirit. Like this is all under the same guise. Like this is what the powers of darkness do. Like this is crazy to think about. They're trying to break him. They're drugging him. They're assaulting him. And he's a kid. He's a kid. This all happened between 12 years old and 17 years old. And so now he spends 6 months because he has a mental breakdown of constantly being physically assaulted for years and trying to and worshiping Satan. It's crazy how the enemy works. But what he's about to say, this last couple minutes, about he becomes a recruiter, and I want you to really listen to what he's saying here. And it's fascinating to me that the way the enemy works, you're about to hear, listen to what he's about to say. You're about to hear why the enemy is greater at their strategy than the church is. You're about to hear why
there's a part.
You're about to hear why the enemy, in many ways, seemingly has is stronger than the church. What he says about being a recruiter is pretty crazy. All right, so here we go. Stay with me. This part is wild. Not all of it's been wild, but here we go.
Of me that he kept sealed, because if they had accessed that, maybe it would have been hard for me to come out.
Yeah.
So where are we?
So we're towards 17, 18. Yes. You're coming towards the end of your time in this place. Oh, yeah, you're in the hospital. They're trying to break you some more with all these drugs and all these horrible things going on.
Yeah. So I'm there. So they tried to break me and they could not. So they decided to bring me back home.
To Uganda.
To Uganda. Now in that state. So I return home and I go by like a normal child, a normal young man, like for 6 months, and then the two priests come back to Uganda to now
from Italy
again to what they came. When they came to me, now they came with love. Remember the first time this man came to me, he said, "I want to be your father," and that is what opened me up. Now, When he said, I want to be your father, I love you as a father, I am your father. The moment he said, I
They've
want to be your
abused him
father,
for
now I
years,
had to
and now
reveal
they're coming
whatever.
with love.
Like I opened up all my senses, and then because I had opened up, so he takes me back. And then that's when he's in there initiating me as a guardian master, because I have openly accepted what they want.
So it takes you back to it.
Now, this time willfully. Because remember, before I was deceived. When I was young, I was taken by my mother.
Mm-hmm.
When I was taken to Italy, I went not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So they could not break my will. So they bring me back. He comes to me this time and then he says, I want to be a father. I remember Mr. Father. I want to love you. So he came with love. And for the first time, I felt accepted, loved, accepted. And now, because he said, I want to be I want to love you. I want to be this to you. I want to do this. You're good man. So I open up to him. Now he's embracing me as a father, and I'm the baby in me is longing for a father. So when he texts me, then he says, oh, you know what? Okay, now we're not forcing you. You're going to be a guardian master.
So what does that mean in comparison to what you'd been before? Was this obviously sounds like a higher
This is a higher level, but also now you are you're not a servant. You now appear with them. Like now you've come into the ruling circle to decide. So the time you're going to make your guardian master, you return to Africa, because there are always like 5 in the entire continent. You're going to be part of this council of the guardian masters, and you're going to do our work, our system. You're not going to be in the witchcraft. You're going to be normal. You're going to go to university. You're going to have money. You're going to have an organization. You're going to work with leaders.
Listen to what he says here very closely. You're going to go to school, you're going to have money, you're going to work with organizations and leaders. All right, listen to what he says they want him to do right here.
There's in the nation, you're going to work with them. So like you're going to be like a representative of the system in your country, but in
the region.
In the region.
It says there's only about 5 in the whole of Africa.
So I'm in charge of the Great Lakes region, another in charge of the Southern Africa, another in the Western, another in Northern, another in Sub-Saharan, all these regions. So when they told me, okay, now you're not going to be a slave or a servant. Now you're one of us. You're a leader. You're a great man, and all this. So they ordained me as a guardian master of that system. And they sent me back to Uganda to go and identify 5,000 young people and recruit them. Now, the young people was to find the young people in universities. So I was to go and become a student in the university and identify bright students in medicine, in law, in education, and recruit them in Satanism from the university. So by the time they finish university, they're already recruited. So they go in the marketplace already. For example, this is a doctor, a surgeon, a lawyer, teacher.
For their agents, because they've already recruited and initiated.
But initiated, very educated, so you cannot know. Like you can't say this doctor is a witch or this lawyer is an agent of witchcraft and all this. So my work was to return to Uganda.
All right, so this is crazy, right? So what he's saying is that he goes back, he recruits bright students in college to Satanism, to the occult. So these students graduate as doctors, lawyers, people of status and profile that you wouldn't normally attribute to the worship of Satan and witchcraft. None of this stuff, right? He says these are the people that he recruits to go and worship Satan, and they go out into thousands of them go out into the workplace, and they're agents of Satan. Can you imagine if you're a doctor working for Satan, the kinds of diagnosis that you do and prescribe that keep people suffering forever? If you're a lawyer or a judge, can you imagine locking people up and punishing them in ways that will destroy their souls so that they can be broken down? And I mean, it's that's that. But now he's about to say something that for me as a pastor was the most profound. And it may shake you, because I think Well, let me let him say it first, and then I'm going to make a comment. This is what he's about to say. To me, is really profound. All right. So here's him walking us back through, and here we go.
Go to the university, become a student there, identify such students, sponsor them, give them all they need, give them the best education, send them different universities in the world, return to Uganda and take over the marketplace. So that was my work. Then another work was identify the churches, the men of God who are still not compromised, break their powers, break their marriages, break their businesses, break their churches, destroy them because they were a threat.
The specific aim was men of God.
Yes, men of God. Attack them, break their marriages, break their businesses, scatter them. And specific ones, like this one, like this one, like this one, like especially men who were not compromised, but also I've observed that men who were committed to prayer, not preaching prayer. But most of my attacks were on prayer ministries, churches that were praying, the churches where we were calling people to fast, to repentance, to holiness. So my work was raise these young people, young girls and young boys. While you're raising them, you're training them also to break churches, to defile men of God, to go into the churches.
Sexual
immorality.
Yes.
Take them in there. So kill the fire, because as long as the fire, you've killed the fire of prayer, then we can control a territory. So I was at the university and I'm doing that, getting young people. How do I get them? Through parties, orgies, organized concerts.
Orgies.
Yeah. Organized concerts, buy them what they need, give them parties and what, drink, give them drugs. And because most of, like in my country, most people are poor. So
Wow. So you heard what he said. He said that his job was to target specific ministries, churches, pastors who were people of prayer. He said, not preaching, not preaching. He said prayer. He said he noticed the theme of the pastors that they would attack their marriages, destroy their businesses, whatever they're doing, because he said they were a threat, because prayer is a threat. He said there was a fire that was through prayer, and these were churches that were not just prayer, but focusing on like repentance and holiness. They were, and he also said pastors who were not compromised. Whew. I'm a pastor. I do not believe I've been compromised at all by the powers of darkness. I have weaknesses. I fail, I sin at times, but I'm not compromised. But when I hear this and I think, wow, he said not preaching but prayer. Man, preaching is such a dominant theme in America. Like everyone wants to be a preacher. People go to seminary because they want to preach. They want to, because everyone thinks that's the glamorous part, showing what you know. But that's not where the power is, right? At least from his perspective, and I've heard others say this, they were attacking marriages, churches, people who were praying, pastors who were challenging their people to repent and to live holy lives. They were targeting because they were a threat, because they were not compromised pastors. Wow. This interview is 3 hours long. We're only into an hour of it. I will put a link of it in the description. I want to finish it if you want to watch it, but this is, I mean, there are times when videos, you can believe them or not, but these types of videos where people who were really into the occult, they at least, whether you believe, you at least get some information about how the powers of darkness work that you wouldn't normally have. And I think we should heed whatever he's saying as recognizing the power of prayer. So you get the difference between witchcraft and the occult, but most importantly, what he said, at least in this clip, is how powerful prayer actually is. One thing that he said at the beginning of this video that we didn't see, that if you watch it, but I want to say this, and I'm going to end with this. He talked about, he was told that all of them were told, hey, pack up everything and go 70 miles away, right? They said a man of God is coming who, his name is Marcellus something. He'll mention it in the beginning of this video. He said, a man of God is coming whose prayers are so effective and so powerful that if you were in a 70-mile radius, his prayers will either kill you or convert you. That's how powerful. And it was a real dude. He said the name, we looked it up, me and the homies, and we know who he was. It was a real dude. It was an evangelist that died in 2020. The powers of darkness warned him that when this dude comes, his prayer is so effective and it's powerful that you have to go 70 miles away and stay away for at least 21 days. Do not come back for 20, because the power of his prayers in the atmosphere for at least 21 days. That's crazy. If you think about the significance of 70 in Genesis 10, when God divided up all the nations, apparently most theologians believe it was 70 nations that God divided up in. Right? So that's why 70 and 72 are, significant numbers in the Bible. So I thought it was interesting that the 70-mile radius, is a 70 is a number that's important in the Bible, but that's a whole different thing. I'm going to put the link in the description. Check this out if you want to. I think this joint gets craziest testimony I've ever heard, and one of the most sobering, but also one of the most encouraging. Because when you're praying there's power in prayer, but there's also going to come attack. Attack is going to come if you're praying. So if I'm going to be attacked, I'd rather be attacked because I'm praying than be attacked because I'm not praying. All right? Kirk Kennedy signing off. Appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. If not, then don't. All right? But I appreciate you. Thanks for watching.